Happy Sunday evening to everybody. It's 6 o'clock. How is everybody tonight? It got kind of warm. I'm not quite ready for that warmer weather yet. Hi, Nancy. People are coming in. How is everybody tonight? Oh, got a thumbs up. I like those thumbs up. Do those, guys. Those are fun. They have like all the little things, they dance across my screen. That's awesome. Make sure you say something when you come in so I know you can hear me okay. Is the mic working all right tonight? Hi, Deb. Oh, I got another thumbs up. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Garnet. People are joining us. Hi, Denise. Yep, make sure you say something when you come in so I know you can hear me all right. Oh, a second, let me scroll down. I think there's other people in here. Just a second. Oh, hi. Oh, hi, Kathy. Hey, Jan, you sound great. Okay. That's good. You can hear me all right? Hi, Deb. Can hear me fine. Awesome. This camera is pretty good. It wasn't really expensive, but so far it's been working really well. Yeah, I like the little thumbs up. It's like little dancing bubbles across my screen. Oh, I got more comments. Second here. Oh, there's Marcia. Hi, Marcia. Denise, Lori. Oh, hi, Sharon. Is everybody ready to make this pillow? It's really a cute pillow. It's so much fun to do. And so tonight I decided that I would do I wanted to do the pillow, and I thought, well, I tried the first one. So when I made the first pillow, I just did the embroidery. You know, I did the placement line and the embroidery, and then I did the tack down line, and then I trimmed it. Oh my gosh, that was so hard to trim. It's so small. I had quite a time getting it trimmed. I thought, well, there's got to be an easier way. So I thought, well, we're going to cut that out with a scan and cut. And that is what I've done. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways to cut it, depending on which one you're doing. If you're going to do the embroidery one, or if you're going to do the sewn one. Because some people don't have embroidery machines that are on here, so I wanted to make sure there was two different ways. So I'll show you two ways to cut it. One if you're doing the embroidery, and one if you're doing the oh, hi, Lois. Hi, Teresa. Well, we're getting all kinds of folks in here. Everybody's finding me, evidently. I keep hearing dinging, but I can't see what's going on. So just a second, let me grab my phone in case somebody's trying to get a hold of me. Sometimes people message me. Oh, I see. Can't find directions for how to connect. Oh, is that Nancy? Nancy, you must have found me, though, because I see you came in. You have to go to the group. So I think you already came in. Oh my gosh, we got 17 people here already. My goodness. I missed this last week. Did you guys miss getting together last week? It was so weird to not be here. I was in Savannah visiting my friend Connie, and all of a sudden about 6 o'clock I looked up and I thought, oh, I should be teaching class right now. I thought that was weird. Oh, Lynn, I wondered if you'd notice it. So Lynn asked me to point out my jingle bells on the wall behind my head. Can you see? I'll move out of the way. See jingle bells up here? This is a design that I did in the Pattern Maker software that does the cross stitch. And this is a hand embroidery or hand cross stitch pattern that I bought in a book, scanned it in, and made it into an embroidery design. I would never, ever have been able to get that done manually. So yes, that's jingle bells up behind my head here. You're going to see different things on my camera tonight. I'm rearranging. Did you miss me, Sharon? Well, it was kind of weird not doing it. I really enjoyed doing this on Sunday nights, and I hope you're enjoying it too. I kind of missed it, so we'll probably miss few here and there. Depends on my schedule, of course, but you know, yes, it was kind of weird, wasn't it? I'm used to coming home and doing this, and it was strange. So Connie was laughing at me because at 6 o'clock I thought if it should be feel like I should be doing something. So she thought that was funny. So okay, so it looks like we got about 20 people. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. It's about 5 minutes after 6. And so anyway, with the pillow, the first time I made those kind of patriotic ones, and I'll show them on the camera here in a second when I move. We're going to do a little bit on the computer or on the machine first, and then we're going to try and find a good place to lay my phone. Here we go. Then we're going to go over to the scan and cut, because I want to show you something that works for me when it comes to cutting out embroidery designs that are kind of like this one was so small. It was just really hard. I don't often pre-cut my embroidery applique pieces, but there are some times that you would want to do that. And so this is definitely one of them. And sometimes people that do embroidery designs give you SVG files. And I've had some problems with SVG files, taking them from a CD and putting them into my scan and cut, because sometimes they come up really strangely. Oh, hi, Clara. They come up a little, hi, Tammy. They come up a little strange in the software sometimes, and sometimes they come in like kind of grouped, like a whole bunch of stuff grouped into one piece. And so I don't always like using SVG files. So what I do usually is I actually use my PES file and make the scan and cut read it, and then it cuts right from the stitch file. So those of you who have scan and cuts and Brother or Baby Lock machines can easily do this with your machine. I'll probably also show you on sessions on software how to do this in the software, but we won't do that tonight. We're just going to deal with the sewing part of it. But there's times when this works really well, and it's easy, and then I can just take that design right from my stick and put it in the scan and cut, and then it will cut out my file for me, and you know it's going to be the right size because it is from the embroidery file. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you 2 ways to cut this with the scan and cut. I have a scan and cut, one of the newer ones, the SDX 225. But if you have a 550 or a 650, I'll tell you about the blade settings too. So I know what the blade settings would be. And the rest of it's very similar, so you shouldn't have any problems. But they do work really well cutting this way. And so the first thing we're going to do, so we'll start with creating that cut file. We need a cut file off of that PES file that we have. So we have, I think everybody got that on the group. And again, I'm going to remind you, please remember to go sign up for the Kimberbell newsletter, because that's how technically you're supposed to get this design. But their news, it was very difficult to get it to download. So please go sign up for the newsletter, and then you can get the design on the group. On which scan and cut can you use the PES file? You can use it on the 550s, the 650s, and the new ones. So whichever one you have, Marcia, I think you might have a 650 or a 550, it works just fine on that as well. Okay, so what we're going to do, it works on all the scan and cuts, all the way back to the original one. Okay. Hi, Mary. Hope you had fun shop hopping. Do I get to have pictures of all your purchases today? Lynn said she'd send me pictures. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in my machine, I'm going to put this down over onto the machine now. So if you give me a second, I got to move the camera. I'm going to put it down on my computer screen, or on my machine screen. Second here. I have the camera had to move tonight, so I had to put it on my laptop tray. So it's a little weird to get the angle right tonight. So I apologize, because it needed to move from one place to another, and I had to do it this way. Okay. There. Okay, so I think you can see the screen well up. I'll hold it down a little bit, because I'm not getting a good angle. Let's see if we go up from the top. I wasn't sure how this would work the best, so I apologize that I have to do a little messing around. Okay, so I've got my USB stick over here with my design on it. All of you can do this with your machine. You don't have to have a special machine to do it. Just a brother or baby lock, obviously. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to open my USBs on the luminaire. You have to open the little pocket and then the USB. So I'm going to go get my design. And here is the welcome that we're going to do tonight, this one right here. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to set it. All right, so there's 3 colors in it. There's 3 stops. The first one's the placement line. That's the one we're looking for. The second one's going to be a tack down line, and the third one is going to be the pretty decorative stitch that goes around the edge. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we need to do something to that placement line for the machine to read it. The machine will not read it until you change it to a special color, because then it knows it's an applique cutting line. And you can do this on any design, you know, any applique design. You know, you can just, like this is a Kimberbell one, I'm just using it. I can use an Anita Good design, I can put in a Juju, anything that I have, this will work with. Okay, so a second, I got a couple more comments. Oh, hi girls. Pam, Pasha, and Sheila came in. Hi girls. All right, so I have to do some editing on this design. I'm going to go hit edit, and then I need the little color changing box. It looks like a little thread spool with the little color boxes on it, and this is basically the same icon on all the machines. Okay, I'm going to click on that. And then it's going to show me up here on the screen which step I'm on. I need to touch the one I'm on. I want the first one. That's the one I need that's the placement line, so that's the one I need to change the color. And if I go to the bottom, the brother color chart comes up, and on the very bottom, there's a little kind of a gold. Let me see if I can get a little closer so you can see that. There's a little gold one. Can you see that? And it has a little pair of scissors on it. I'm going to touch that one. That is called, and it'll come up here then. Can you see on the screen? It says applique material. That's the color that the scan and cut looks for, and it knows that color is a cut line. Okay? So now I'm just going to hit OK. See how easy? And if you have, let's say you have 4 appliques in the same design, you can do all of them at the same time. Just go down the line and on here, like if I needed to do the second one too, I could touch it, and then I have that one selected, and then I can go down here and change it. So whichever ones are going to be the placement lines is what you're going to cut from. Okay, so we got the first one done. Hit OK. But now I need to get that back to my stick, because I need to save it so that I can use that file in the scan and cut. So I'm going to hit memory, and I'm going to save it back to my stick. All right. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, depending on which machine you have and which scan and cut you have. I have a luminaire. My luminaire produces a PHX file, which is the new file format that the machines produce. Everybody else's machines, you know, from the Dream Machine on down, produce PHC, including the 10 needle and the 6 needle. All right. Now, my scan and cut, the new scan and cuts, will read PHX and PHC. But if you happen to have a luminaire and an older scan and cut, you will not be able to use the sewing machine for it to read, because the scan and cuts 550s and 650s will not read PHX. Most of you that have the luminaire have the newer scan and cut as well. So if you have questions about that, you can personal message me. Most people are not going to have a problem, because if you have a luminaire, most of you have the 225 also. So you'll just be able to do what I just did. Took me 2 minutes to do it, and then you have a cut file. Okay, so it is a little weird. The new machine Hi, Evie. The new machine produces that new format, and so it's a little bit confusing. So if you have more questions, let me know. All right, so now I am ready to take the stick out of the machine because we saved the changed color on there. I'm going to take it out of the machine. I'm actually going to get rid of the design for right now and hit OK, and then take my stick out. I don't like to pull the stick out unless I see this main screen, because then I know the USB is turned off and I can pull the stick out of the machine. Okay, so it's not a good habit to just pull the stick out of the machine with the design up, because it's actually, the USB port is on. Okay, so it's sort of the same thing as ejecting the stick from your computer. Okay, so now you get to travel with me across to the scan and cut. So if you give me a second here, I'm going to raise the camera up, and we're going to move the whole business here over to the scan and cut. You're going to be seeing some different things in my sewing room because I am rearranging my sewing room to accommodate my long arm. So I'm in the process of trying to get everything moved so that I can have my long arm in here. All right, so let's turn the scan and cut on. It went to sleep. And I think I can get this close enough so you can see it. Like that. Okay. So we're going to try two different ways of doing this. So we have produced that cut file on the stick, but there's another way to do this. If you are doing the sewn version, you can do make that cut file a different way. So we're going to put this aside for a second. I'm going to show you how to do the cut file with the scan and cut, because you can just do it with the scan and cut. So let's back up just a little bit so you can see the mats and stuff. And what I have done is, on the pattern, the last page was this welcome on a piece of paper. When you cut, or when you print this on your paper, make sure the PDF file that you print at actual size, so that it is the right size. However, you cannot use this to do the embroidery file because they are a different size. Because I checked it, and this is slightly smaller than the embroidery file. So the reason that's why I made the file from the embroidery design to use in my embroidery design. This one is just going to be for the sewn version. If you're going to drive around it yourself, which I did as well. So I'll show you the one I did with that. Just a second here, I got the pillow. So I'm going to use this picture to do this one. This is the one I drove around with the sewing machine, the red one. Okay, so that's what we're going to make right now. I'll show you how to produce that file from this piece of paper. And then the other one will be we're going to actually cut them both so you can see them both cut, but we will actually use the one that we're going to do that we made on the stick a little bit ago. Hi, Jackie. Okay. So let me get my scanning mat. So I have taken this piece of paper and I've printed it at actual size. I have my scanning mat. I like to use a scanning mat when I scan things because it doesn't have sticky on it. So if you have a nice pattern of some sort, you don't have to worry about it getting stuck to your mat by accident. Ask me how I know about that one. I ruined a pattern. I had to reorder the pattern because it was stuck to the mat and I couldn't use it. So anyway, this is my scanning mat. So I'm going to go ahead and load my scanning mat into the machine. And again, this one's for the sewn version. We're not going to use this one for the embroidery. We're going to use the one that we just made on the stick for the embroidery. But I wanted to show you two different ways to do this. This is fun to do. Like if you buy an applique pattern, traditional machine applique pattern that you would be making a quilt out of or whatever, this is how I would do that. I take the papers, or like in the book, sometimes I have to make a copy of it, and then I scan the design into my scan and cut, and then I trace it, and that's how I cut them out. So we've got this in here. I'm going to go ahead up here on the screen. Hopefully you can see this. I'll get a little closer. Okay. The scan and cut is really hard to do on camera because the screen is not very dark. So it is a little hard to see. So I apologize. So we're going to scan, which is the second button over here. It just says scan. And there's several ways to scan on the scan and cut. You can direct cut. That means that you would scan it and cut it out of the same piece of paper. That is not what I want to do. I'm going to cut this out of fabric. So I'm going to scan to cut data. So I'm going to hit the second button. And then now it just says, I'm going to scan in black and white mode because my paper is black and white. And then I am going to hit start. And I'm going to hit start one more time. So now it's going to scan. I'll let you see what it's doing here. Was this welcome already mirrored, or did you do that before? Oh, this welcome was mirrored, Denise, on the piece of paper. Many, many applique patterns, and I think you were saying you had just gotten an applique pattern. Read the pattern carefully, because most designers will mirror it on the piece of paper, so when you print it out, it's already mirrored, okay? The one that we produced on the memory stick that we're going to use for the embroidery, we're going to have to mirror that in the machine because it was right side up. So we're going to cut it right side down. Okay? That was a good question. So yes, this was already mirrored. Most of the patterns I do are already mirrored, and the pattern will tell you that. So, okay? So we've got it scanned. We're going to go back up here to the screen. Wish I could get just a little bit closer. There we go. How's that? Can you see now? A little bit better. This is my scan. It looks like pretty good. Over here are 3 buttons. These are the tracing buttons. The first one will just trace around the outside edge. So many times when I'm doing an applique, that's the one I choose. But this one is with the letters, has inside and outside portions, like, you know, the inside of the L, the inside of the E, and so on. So this one we need to have inside and outside portions. So I'm actually going to touch the second button and let it trace. So when it comes up, and you're not probably going to be able to see it too well on the screen, but it's gray on the inside, and then I can see a little black outline all the way around my welcome. Okay? I'm going to crop. There's a bunch of junk in here, and I may have to still go in and fix it. There's a bunch of junk in here, so I'm going to take these little arrows and I'm going to crop that out and go up here and see if we can get as much of that junk out of there as I can. Okay, that looks pretty good. Looks like I did pretty well with that. So that looks pretty good now. I'm going to hit preview. And that looks pretty good. I think I'll be okay with that. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. So I'm going to hit OK. Oops, second here. I have a hard time with my fingers and the touch screen. Now, Denise, I'm going to remember to answer your question. There many times, there's different places now. I just traced that, and I can save this several places. Okay. When I do a lot of those Doris Dutmeyer applique designs that are like permanently fused, and they have a lot of detail in them. And I find, and she hand draws everything. So all of her designs, I scan them in. I do the same thing I just did, and then I save them. But instead of saving them to the machine or to the stick, I actually save them back to the software, and that's what this does. It lets me save it to my computer. In other words, it goes to my Canvas account. And you do not have to be logged in. I can just hit this right now. If I hit this, and I'm going to hit it, and I'll probably save it again. But it's saving it to my Canvas account. It says save successful. And often I have to go in and do a little bit of, especially for her designs, I have to go in and do a little bit of cleanup work on the computer, and that really is helpful. This particular design is very, very clean, so I'm just going to hit OK one more time since I saved it once. And then in this case, I'm probably just going to save it back to my machine and just save it in there. You could also save it to a stick. But what's cool about the machine now is this is a really good scanner. And honestly, I have better luck tracing applique designs and different things that I'm doing in the machine than I do with the software. The software tracing is a little bit mediocre. So I often trace the stuff in the machine and then save it to my software, and then I work with it later. Does that make sense? So I'm literally doing the scanning here, tracing it, and then I can do the cleanup on the computer where the screen is bigger than, you know, this is this big. So it's really small. Much easier to clean up on the computer screen. Okay, so when the scan and cut started with the wireless business with the 650s, you could not send the design from the scan and cut to the software. You could only send it from the software to the scan and cut. But now we can go both ways, and it is so handy because then I do most of my scanning and stuff with the machine and then send it to the software just to do some cleanup. And it's much, much better that way. Okay, so hopefully, Denise, that helps you with the project that you're getting ready to work on. Okay, so we're okay with that. We got it okay. I'm done with the scanning. I've done my tracing. I'm done with this now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the little house, and I'm going to hit OK. All right, so I'm going to eject this mat. So I'm going to pull this back just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. We'll eject this mat. We'll set this one aside. We won't need this one now for, again, we'll set it under here. Okay. Now, when I cut fabric, and a lot of you have taken my beginning class with the scan and cut, I still cut fabric the same way I always have. There's two mats that came with your machine, depending on which one. Most of them come with the low-tack mat and a standard mat. In the instructions, it tells you to use the standard mat to put one of these things called a high-tack adhesive sheet on. This is a super, super sticky sheet. It's clear plastic, and then there's a green cover on the top. Okay. I don't like to use my standard mat. I use my low-tack mat because I don't actually use this mat for much of anything else. I did find out I had to use it for the foiling, though, so I do have a second one now. But I take my high-tack adhesive sheet and I apply it to this low-tack mat. I have then marked it as fabric, and this is the only thing I use this mat for. I just keep it all the time for fabric only. All right, and I do, you know, because I cut a fair amount of fabric. So I'm going to take the cover off here, and I had to restick this a little bit last night. It was getting kind of unsticky, so hopefully we don't have any mishaps this evening. But I'm going to take my fabric, which I have used. This is my piece of fabric I'm going to cut for my new welcome pillow, and I have applied Heat and Bond Light on the back of it. This is the Heat and Bond that you can sew through because we're going to be doing embroidery over it, so we want to sew through this. Heat and Bond seems to work the best for me. People have tried other things. You're welcome to try, you know, whatever you would like. But Heat and Bond I like because it actually adheres into the fabric much better, and things don't come off on me. You know, I do use the Floriani applique Wonder Some, and that works, but it's a little harder to cut. Not so much with the new machine. I've cut it in here, and it works a little easier because you don't have to set the blade. I've always had trouble cutting that with the older machine, but this one cuts it fine. But Heat and Bond Light is my favorite for sewn stuff, and when I do those Doris Dutemeyer things, the fabrications by Doris, I use Heat and Bond Ultra, which is the kind that is permanent fuse, and you do not sew through that. Okay, so this is Heat and Bond Light. Got it on the back. Then we're going to put this on the mat, and you can lay it anywhere. It's hard for me to hoop here, so I'm going to go around the other side of the camera here. And I'm going to put this wherever I want. I try to keep it straight on the mat just because then it's easier to get the design on it. But make sure you push it down so that it's well adhered. Hopefully you could kind of see that a little bit. There we go. So I've got it fabric side down. I leave the paper on the heat and bond. Yes, I do put that green, this, Nancy, this high tack adhesive sheet, I put on the low tack adhesive mat, and I mark it fabric, and that is the only thing I use it for. I use this to cut fabric because otherwise it's not sticky enough. It won't hold it tight enough. So that's what these are for, is to cut fabric. Okay, so I've got my piece of fabric on there face down. I leave the paper on the back of the heat and bond. If it comes off, it's okay, but sometimes the knife, the blade holder will kind of rub on it because it's kind of tacky. So I try to leave it on if I can. Sometimes they come off on me, but I try to leave it on. I'm going to go ahead and load this mat. And again, we've talked about mat loading with the new machine especially. I think all machines should be loaded this way. Just be careful. I spread my hand out in the middle, and then I load the mat. Okay. So now we need to get that design that we created. So we're going to cut out the one that we created for the sewn image first. So let's cut that one out first. I'm going to go to my retrieved data and get a little bit closer again. Sorry, I can't. I'm having a little more trouble with the camera tonight because I needed it to move around. So, okay. So here is the button that says retrieve data, because remember we saved it in the machine. I'm going to retrieve it from the machine. And then welcome is number 5. I remember looking at the number, it was number 5. So here is my welcome. It's running up and down, so we're going to have to do a little editing to do this. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to edit this. I need to flip it over. Remember, it was already mirrored because it's going to be cutting from the back. So that's good. It's already mirrored, but I do need to rotate it. So I'm going to hit, whoops. Now, I don't know if you can see. Can you see there's a teeny tiny little white or red dot right here? I think you can kind of see it there. See that teeny tiny little red dot? That means this thing came in pieces. That's not good. So we need to get this group together. Second, I got more comments, so I'm trying to scroll down. How about your blade? Oh, how about my blade? Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second, Denise. If you see that little red line, I want all of this to be in one piece, because if I try to move that, certainly I will miss part of it. So to do that, the 3 red boxes is select, and then I can select all, which is the second button on the right. Select all. Now see all the red boxes around it. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. And then this machine has a unify or a group button. So it's under Object Edit. And it looks like a square with like a triangle and a square in it. So it's right here. And now, look, I've only got one red square for the whole thing. So it got it all into one piece. That's kind of important when you're doing this stuff. Otherwise, it's very easy to move things and then have it out of place. All right, so we're going to hit OK. I'm going to move the camera just a little bit. Okay. I hit OK. Now we're going to do Object Edit again, and I'm going to go up here to the top, and the one with the box with the little arrow that's pointing over is Rotate. So I'm going to rotate it. I think I'll just rotate it to the left, like that. So now it's heading the same direction I put my fabric on, is what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to hit OK, and hit OK one more time, and third time. So now I'm ready to get to the cutting screen. Whoops, second here. And this button right here, woohoo! We got thumbs pointing up. I'm going to scan this because I'm not sure that my design is right where I want it to be. So I'm going to click on the scan button. And second here, I got to move a pillow so I won't hit it. I'm going to click Start. So now it's going to scan the fabric up there so I can see it on the screen. And then we can move the design to go to the fabric. All right, so here's my design. My design's above my fabric, so I'm going to grab my design with my finger and pull it down so it's on that fabric. And I think I cut my fabric. I don't know that it really told you in the instructions, but I cut my fabric and my applique fabric and my applique, my heat and bond, 5 inches by 10 inches for this particular project. So that's how big it, I don't think it told you in the instructions, but that's how big I cut mine. It worked well. So I've got it down here. All right, it's ready to go. I've got it all on my fabric, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, Denise asked about the blades. The blade, depending on the machine you're using, I have the SDS 225. So my blade is called the auto blade, and it will automatically set my depth for me. And I use the standard black holder, and it's called the auto blade. The one thing I did do, though, how many people have sewing scissors? And you probably only cut fabric with your sewing scissors, right? I actually have 2 blades. This is my fabric blade. I marked it F for fabric. And I only cut fabric with this blade and blade holder, because I actually bought a blade holder and a blade. I've always done this with the machines. I still have the blade from my original 550 that I'm cutting fabric with for my 650. And it's, 5 years old. That's the same blade I've used all this time. So you don't have to buy them very often, but I like to cut just fabric with this blade. So this is the auto blade with the standard auto blade with the auto blade holder. Okay, I did have one, so I have another one. You can still cut with your other blade, but I've noticed when I'm cutting paper, vinyl, glitter vinyl, stuff like that, my blade wears out really quick, and then my fabric doesn't cut well. So that's why I have a separate blade. There is another blade with the SDX 225. It has a tan top. That blade is for fabric without any kind of applique material on the back. It's for fabric only. So we will do something with that later, but not that I normally do not use that blade. It is for stuff that you're not going to be cutting through any kind of applique material. So I don't use that blade very often, but I'll do a project later this summer that we will cut something out with that blade, because we're going to use fabric with no bonding agent on the back. Okay, so normally for applique you're using some sort of bonding agent. All right, for those of you with the 650s and the 550s, you're going to use your standard blade. It's that kind of turquoise colored blade. And again, I have a separate blade and blade holder that I only cut my fabric with. You will set your blade for those machines on the blade. I usually set on about 5, either 4 or 5, depending on my fabric. And then there's also a pressure setting in the machine. So you have to go into your settings and change your pressure to 4. Usually 4, sometimes 5. So the blade, for those of you with setting your own blades, 4 or 5. I think I usually do 5 for the blade, 4 for the pressure. That's my kind of go-to setting. It seems to work well. Okay. This machine, we don't have to do anything at all. This is the most wonderful way to cut fabric, because I don't have to test cut. Everything just works great. I'm just going to let the machine do it for me. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to tell, please select, and I'm going to tell it I'm going to cut. Right now it's set at the pressure is auto, which is where I want it. The speed's at 3, and the half cut, which you use like for vinyls and stuff, is off, because we want it to cut all the way through, not just halfway through. So here's my welcome. I'm going to hit start, and I didn't have to set any blades, folks. This is just awesome. It'll do it for me. So I'm going to pull this back so you can watch the machine cut. It's setting the depth. And for those of you with the older machine, listen how quiet this thing is. When first time I cut something on it, I was like, wow. I still love my 650. I'm not getting rid of it. But this machine is so quiet. So then you don't have to worry about waking up the whole house when you're cutting stuff in the middle of the night like I do. Although my cats don't seem to wake up for anything. It's getting about done. Doesn't take very long to do these. I really enjoyed cutting fabric with this machine. When it came out, the first thing I cut was fabric, and I was like, wow. Because normally with fabric being more inconsistent than papers and stuff, I think, I had to do a lot of test cutting when I cut fabric, and I just don't hardly ever test cut now. I just cut. Okay, so it's done. So let's see how we did here. I'm going to eject the mat, and here's our cut. So if I pull this up, now remember, this is the one that I'm going to use for my traditional applique that I'm going to drive around my applique with the sewing machine. This is not the one we're going to use in our embroidery design yet. Okay, so there's that. So here's the W. I got beautiful, beautiful clean cuts. So here's my W. Whoops, pulled a little bit of my tacky mat off. It's getting about time for a new plastic, the super sticky thing. You have to replace those every now and then. They are kind of a nuisance because they come off in little shreds, because when you cut with it, you do cut through it. But it works fine. I just lost a little bit there with my W. Then I'm going to get the E and the L off here. Okay, so here's the E and the L. The backing comes off pretty easy. And then here's the COME. So here's that. But see how beautiful that cut? And wasn't that easier than tracing it with tracing paper? Tracing it and then cutting it out with scissors. It's just amazing how easy it is to cut appliques with this. And then you can just use the scanner right in the machine. You don't need anything special to do it. Just scan it right in the machine and away it goes. So I have my whole welcome for my sewn version of my pillow. I'm going to make 2 more. So this one's going to be the sewn one. And then we're going to cut out the one we're going to use for our embroidery tonight. So we're going to do the embroidery. I'm not going to sit and drive around that little welcome for everybody. I think I have an idea of how to do that. We're going to do the embroidery pattern tonight. What I did with mine, the red one that I did, I just used a really small, narrow zigzag, and then I matched my thread to my fabric because I'm not a really good appliquer, so you really can't see how poorly I did. But it turned out pretty well. I'm a little bit more of a machine appliquer, so I give people credit that do a lot of traditional machine applique. Okay, so now we're going to get ready and we're going to cut this again. So let's see where I've got a good sticky spot. Yeah, let's put this one this way. I have that little spot that came up, so we'll stick it down here. So we're going to cut out the one from our embroidery file. This is the one we're going to use tonight when we embroider. Looks like I have another question. So, do you have to sometimes restick the green mat with zig like you do? Yes, I do, Nancy. So sometimes, after a while, she was asking if I restick my mats with that zig 2A glue pen. So yes, after a while, but these are pretty clean all the time because, you know, really it's covered up. So I don't have to restick this one as often as I do the standard mat. But yeah, I do restick them so that it holds that sheet a little bit better. Yep. Okay, so we got our fabric on there again. Again, it is face down. I'm sure it's on there well. I'm going to have to lay it down on the table here. I don't have a lot of room for working up here, so. Okay, we're going to load this into the machine. All right. Then we're going to go back up here to the screen. It says it's finished cutting, so now we're going to go to, oops, second here. If I kind of shine down at it, the it works a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go hit the little house button and click OK. Now I'm going to take my USB, because remember we made our embroidery file, cutting file on here. So I'm going to put this into the machine. I'm going to retrieve my data, and I'm going to use, here we go. I'm going to use the USB stick. So I'm going to click on that. And now when this opens up, here it'll show the PES file in here, but that's not the one we changed. That's the one we opened up in the embroidery machine. But the changed file is going to say PHX on my machine. And if you do it on like a Dream machine, it's going to say a PHC. Okay? But the machine produces a little file folder called vPocket, and that's where it goes. So the design that we saved is actually in here. No, Marsha, this is not a special mat for fabric. I use the low-tack mat that came with the machine with that high-tack adhesive sheet on it, though. You have to use that for the fabric. Otherwise, it's not sticky enough. So I'm going to go to my vPocket. And my PHX file, I actually have 2 of them in here now because I've done this before. So I'm just going to choose. Okay, so I'm going to choose the second one because that's the one we just got done doing. So I'll choose the second one. And it brings up my design. And it looks like the actual embroidery design, but I'm looking for that cut line. So down here on my machine, there are a couple of buttons. The first one is for making designs. This is for the 225s have this, but the other ones don't. The other ones all have this applique line. But this one will allow me to actually make cut files off of the PES file itself. And I'll get into that more later, but I use the applique end of this a lot. So I'm going to hit this little applique button down here. And now it shows me the welcome with a letter A around it. Those of you with the 650s, it's basically going to be the same thing, but you didn't have 2 buttons. It just, when you poke on the PHC file, it'll come up like this. So it's the same way. So this one says welcome. So here's my welcome that we made. I'm going to click OK. Tells me the size. Now for this particular design, I did not change the size of it. I thought, well, I'm going to try it the actual exact size, and it sewed out really well. Sometimes at this point, depending on the digitizing, there's a little plus button here for the number. I only need 1, but when I hit set and under edit, sometimes I'll actually change the size just a little bit bigger. But Kimberbell insets their decorative stitches over the fabric more, so I didn't have to change the size. I just left it the exact size that it was. So it should be fine the way it is, because that's the way I did it the first time. Okay, so it should be fine, so we shouldn't have to resize. But if you look at my design, it says welcome, and it's right side up. So remember, we need to get this mirrored because it needs to be upside down. So I'm going to hit edit, and I'm going to hit object edit, and then there's a mirroring button. It looks like 2 little arrows pointing to each other. So I'm going to mirror that, and now it's upside down. So it's mirrored so that I can cut it upside down and then flip it over. All right, so this one we had to mirror. The other one was already mirrored on the piece of paper, but this one was not. All right, so I'm going to choose that. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit the little scanning button again to make sure that I get my design on the right spot. So we're going to scan. And we're cutting this right from that PES, that original PES file. So I know it's going to fit because it's the right size. I'll make sure that my fabric's on there really well. Okay. And I think I need to move my design up just a little so that it won't be off the edge of my fabric. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to hit OK. All right. I'm going to please select. I'm going to cut. I'd use the same blade settings if I was using a 650 as I did before. I don't have to do any blade settings on this one. I'm going to hit start. I had an extra over here just in case we had an accident. Sometimes, every now and then I'll have something come loose on me, but it's been doing pretty well tonight. I restuck. The other way you can restick your mats when they're not really super dirty is to use baby wipes that do not have alcohol in them and just clean your mats. Now when I cut fabric, I do clean my mat quite a bit to keep it from getting dirty, because the more strings and stuff you have on the mat, the less it's sticky. Oh, Denise is asking me, what is the reason that you put the fabric right side down and have to mirror? Why don't you put fabric right side up? You can cut the fabric right side up, Denise, but as I've played with this and done both, I found that I get a cleaner cut when I put it face down. And I don't know if it's because it's stuck right on the mat and it's cutting, that's the last thing it's cutting is through the surface of the fabric before it gets all the way down. I just feel like I get a cleaner cut that way. If you need to fussy cut something, you can certainly cut fabric right side up. But then, of course, you would not mirror it. But I like to cut it upside down. I've always done it this way, and I get a really super clean edge that doesn't have any little fingers sticking out. Okay, so I think we're done cutting here. Let's pull this down so you can see what I'm going to do next. Okay, here's our cut. Pull this up. Remember, this was cut from our PES file. There we go. Looks pretty good. So here's my W. Here's the EL. And here's the COME. Look at there. See a beautiful cut we made. And that was right off that embroidery file that we used. So this particular project with these, see how narrow those words are? I cut this in the hoop the first time, and man, was that hard, because these are really narrow letters. I did a pillow. For those of you who are doing the Iowa Shop Hop, I did a quilt pillow also that's similar to this. It's a little different design, and I did the word quilt this way. I used a little thicker font though to make it a little easier, but I also cut it out, and it works really slick cutting it out this way, and it was so much faster than trimming it in the hoop because there was a lot of little small areas to trim. So okay, now this is the one we're going to use tonight on our embroidery. So I'm going to put this over on my table, and then I'm going to show you what I did for the fabric, because we're going to do the embroidery tonight, and then next week we will do the assembling of the pillow. So just a second, I'm going to set this on my table. So anybody got any more questions about the scan and cut? Doesn't that work slick with the cutting? Is the fabric stuck to something like a paper before cutting? Yes, Marcia, there is heat and bond light on the back of the fabric. Yep, heat and bond light, that's what it is. There's a piece of paper on the back of it though, yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and eject my mat. And the one thing I always do before I put this mat down, remember we have that super high tack adhesive thing on there. It's super sticky. Anything that lands on it stays on it forever. So I always put the paper back on right away. I'm always getting something stuck on it. My one cat loves to step on it, and she gets her foot stuck on it, and she really hates a mat stuck to her foot. Okay, so Now we're ready for embroidery. This was the sewing file. So for those of you who are doing the sewing version of it, you would then do basically the same thing. You're going to adhere your, you're going to iron your welcome onto the middle of your piece of fabric, and then you're going to drive around with a little tiny zigzag or a little E-stitch, whichever you like, all the way around your design. So I think most of you are probably doing the embroidery part, so that's why we're focusing on that. The instructions said to cut your fabric 11 by 15. So I have my piece of white fabric here that I'm going to put on. Mine's white with a little swirl on it. And I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing over here. There we go. Okay. Now, in the instructions, though, it said to use like a mesh fusible stabilizer on the back of the fabric. I've been doing a lot of Kimberbell designs lately, and they've changed what they did. This pillow was done several years ago. They're actually using that shape flex. And we use that on the sides of the tuffet also. That shape flex stuff works really great. So I have a piece of shape flex that I cut the same size, so it was 11 by 15. I ironed it onto the back of my fabric. You can probably kind of see the little edge right there. And then I used a tearaway on this. This worked better for me to use a tearaway. And then I felt that it gave it a little more stability than just the piece of mesh. So I have the shape flex on the back of the fabric, and then I have it on a piece of tearaway. There's a couple things you could do. You could use perfect stick and stick it down. It's very hard to get off though. So what I've found with the Kimberbell quilts that I've been working on, and I've been doing all my blocks this way, I take the shape flex, put it on the fabric, and then I take a standard tearaway, and I just take some glue stick and put a few stripes of fabric glue stick down here, and just stick the fabric to the glue stick, and that works really well. And then I'm going to hoop this in my 6 by 10 hoop. Now there are 2 designs that are available for this. I just put the one up. I think most of you have a 6 by 10 hoop size or bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and hoop this. I'm trying to get it as centered as I can. There's plenty of fabric. You'll be cutting it down. And I'll show you a trick to doing that next week. So you don't have to square it up. It says to square it up, but why don't you wait till next week and I'll show you how I square these up, because it's really easy then. So it looks like I got Mitzi hair on my fabric here, so we'll take some of that off. Okay, so I've got mine hooped. Again, I put a little glue stick underneath here, and I used a medium tearaway is what I used, or this is the Dime light tearaway. Their medium tearaway is really stiff, so I like the light tearaway that Dime has, and it also tears away really well. Okay, so I have my fabric hooped with my tearaway stabilizer. So instead of the mesh, I use tearaway, and it's in my 6 by 10 hoop. So now we're going to move back over to the machine here, so you'll have to give me a second to roll the cart back over there and grab my USB stick. Okay. Hopefully it's not too bumpy for you. Turn it around again. My sewing room is getting better. You should have seen it a couple days ago. I couldn't even walk through here. I've been tearing it apart. Okay, so we're going to put this in the machine. I'm going to get sat down here so I can get the camera down. All right. So we're going to put this in the machine. And we're going to bring the design up on the screen. So give me a second here. So here is embroidery. I'm going to go get my design on my stick. And here it is. Now this is the 6 by 10 one. Like I said, most of you I think have that's why I just put the one design up. They do have in the same set, so if somebody happens to only have a 5x7 machine, they have one that you can do a split business, but most everybody I'm sure has the bigger size. That's why I did it all in one piece. It's so much faster than trying to do the split design. They do that though. That's the thing I like about Kimberbell. They still have quite a lot of small designs, so the people with the smaller machines can still do their designs. So I think that's cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm not going to sew this whole thing out for you because it does take a little bit, because there's quite a little bit of detail. But because I have a sample of it already done that I'll show you. But I am going to get it started and show you how I put this applique in, because it's pretty slick how this works. Okay, so I'm going to set this. I'm going to hit embroidery. And remember, the first line was the placement line, and that's what we converted into our cut file. So I got to back my second here. There we go. Back this up so you can see the hoop here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I have bobbin thread in the bobbin, and I've got the same color thread. I'm going to use it for all of my steps. So I'm going to put the foot down, and I'm going to do my placement line. Make sure my iron's on. Second, I'm going to stop the machine for a second. I got a big long tail for some reason. It must not have buried my tail. Get that out of there so it won't get stuck. And I'm using kind of a light blue thread for this one. My sample ones are going to be, my pillows are all going to be these kind of funky, wild polka dots. So here's it's doing the letter, the E and the L. Is anybody working along with me? Did anybody cut anything on their scan and cut while I was cutting? I really enjoy doing applique this way. I didn't realize, hi Jackie. I didn't realize how easy it was to make appliques this way, because you don't have to do all that trimming in the hoop, especially if it's really intricate and small like this. I normally just cut it in the hoop, but I'm definitely switching over to this method. It does take a little bit of time to get it ready, but man, was it easy. And everything's so clean along the edges. So yeah, so I've been doing my redoing my sewing room, and the next step is to get the long arm in here. And I had to get a new desk because my desk is humongous, and I have a little tiny desk. So boy, was that ever hard to get like 3 times the stuff into this little desk, and I had to get rid of a lot of stuff. So I've been doing a lot of changing in my sewing room. So as the weeks go along, you'll be seeing a lot of different things, because things are going to look so different in here. I do have it at the point that I can actually sit down and sew though now, which is nice. It's about done with the placement line. Oh, it has to do the inside of the E yet, and I think that's it. Now normally, if I had been doing a smaller design, I would just use my little, remember the little hoop pads we made? And some of you gals have been making them and putting them up on the group. So here's my little hoop pad, but it's kind of small for this. I'd like to make a couple of little bit longer ones. So I'm going to use a different ironing mat. Instead of just slipping this in, I'm going to use an ironing mat. So we're going to take the hoop out of the machine, because we got to get that applique that we beautifully cut into this hoop. So I'm going to move this over here so you can see what I'm going to do on my ironing mat. And I'll take this out of the machine. Oops, I got a little tail here I'm going to cut off. All right, so we'll lay this on. I've got one of those little wool mats here, so I'm going to lay this down on this wool mat. Move my applique over. Whoops. Put it on the floor instead. All right, and I've got this handy dandy little, I love this little clover iron. This has been the best thing for applique because it's small enough that it even fits in a 4x4 hoop. So I bought this a little while ago. It was like, I don't know, 30 bucks or less. And man, does that thing work well. So what I'm going to do then, I don't know how well you can see this. See if I can get down a little bit closer. There, I think you can see the welcome on the hoop. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my W. I'm going to take that heat and bond paper off the back. And I'm going to lay it down inside my placement line. And you want to be very careful with these because you want them to really fit. So I'm going to be very careful to get it in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this side of it, and I'm going to press the other side down with my little iron so that it's kind of adhered a little bit, and then I can work on this W over here to finish the little tail. And if I'm a little off, because I'm just a teeny bit off there, sometimes if I heat it up a little bit, I can move it a little bit more. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's get this W up here. So I'm going to iron that down. And yes, I have used the Floriani Applique Wonder, and remember, it's the stuff that has the tacky on the back, and it does work. It works much better with this machine because it cuts better in this one than it did the old one. So here's the EL, so we're going to do EL next. Paper off here. Of course, the one I wanted to use for the demonstration, the paper stayed on. The other one all came off. Okay, so we're going to get this down in here. Isn't this easier than trimming this in the hoop? I'm going to just get it, and I usually do just a little bit of it at a time, kind of get it organized there. Because you do want to be pretty accurate, so just take your time to get it in there. I'm going to go ahead and get this little first section. Make sure I've got it lined up on this side. Is everybody able to see okay? I can't see the camera too well, so I'm hoping to be able to, oops, I got this one a little off, so I have to tap it. There we go. All right, fits in there nicely. And then here's the COME. So if I was going to do several of these, I'd probably just get all my cutting done, at the same time, cut them all out and get them ready. And then I would have all my appliques already prepared. Once you get going on the cutting, it actually doesn't take that long. It seems like it takes a lot of time, but all right, so we're going to get this one ironed down. I'm going to make sure I'm getting it straight in there. So I do just a little bit at a time. You just have to kind of move it around with your finger and iron it down a little bit at a time so it's nice and even. I think I'm just a little off here. There we go. Get this piece. I need to play with the E a little bit. Hopefully you can still see it. Yep. Quite happy with that there yet. I'm kind of holding it with my finger as I'm touching it with the iron. But this little clover iron is big enough. You can use the little teeny tiny one. That works too. But this one's big enough that you can do more at once instead of that tiny little surface. So when I bought this, it's just perfect, and it does not have steam. It works great for appliques and stuff. Okay, I have a couple comments, so I'm going to look here. Where did you buy your little iron at? I can get them. I got it from Brewer, and I missed the scan and cut part. Where did the pattern come from for the scan and cut? This pattern was actually a PES file, Terry. Okay, so just a second here. I'm a little bit off on this one little spot, so I'm gonna move it around a little bit. Yeah, the little iron I can order it from the at the store for you if you want me to order you one. Denise, just let me know. Seems like they might be around $30. I mean, they're not terribly expensive, but it's just nice when you go to do this kind of stuff because it's not so tiny. I have one of the other ones too, and I use it, but it's very, very tiny. I can just cover a little more surface here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this back over here so you can see my welcome. Okay. Put it back in the machine, and we've got it all tacked down, so it's going to stay put for us. The second step in the design is a tack down stitch. Now, normally, if we were doing a full piece of fabric, you know, that's where we would cut. But I still did the tack down stitch because what it does is it fills in a stitch line all the way around this, and it just made it fill in. So if you were a teeny bit off somewhere, it filled in the gaps, and it really looked much better that way. I tried it once with and once without the tack down, but this really seemed to work. It's not actually going to touch anything, but it just puts the thread around there, and it just kind of fills in any gaps that you might have had when you put the applique in. So we're just doing a tack down stitch. I have another question. 56 on Amazon? 56? Well, that seems like a lot of money. I need to go look it up then. I don't think it was that expensive, but maybe it was. I remember when I got it, it didn't seem like it was. I've had it for a long time though. You know, mine's probably 4 or 5 years old. Yeah, I'll look it up and post it on the group how much the little iron was. But yeah, so this is just filling in those little gaps. Oh, Marcia, the little iron. Everybody was asking how much that little clover iron was that I was using. And you can use a standard iron like this. This hoop is big enough that you could put a smaller iron in it. But I bought this because that iron is small enough to fit inside of a 4x4 hoop. And then I often iron right on the machine with that little ironing pad that we made. Just a second here. I got some more comments while we're sewing here. Still doing the tack down stitch. You had sherbet, Jackie. No, I didn't get any ice cream. I'm bummed. I did get pancakes this morning for breakfast because we went to, my dad and I, Dad loves pancake breakfast, so we went to a pancake breakfast this morning. So we went to Olin to the pancake breakfast. Yeah, I often have ice cream on the way home. I did stop at Helios today. It was really fun. All right, so it's still doing the tack down. And remember, the tack down, there's nothing there it's tacking down, but it just fills in those little gaps if you had a little bit of a gap. Okay, then the last step is going to be my cover stitch. So if you give me just a second, I've got a little bit of a thread that I need to trim. Oh, there's one over here too. Just a second here. That won't get caught in there. Okay, now we're going to do the cover stitch. And see how easy that was? That's the entire welcome applique part. We did the cutting, and that cutting sure helps because, man, I would have been sitting here cutting for an hour. It took me a long time to cut that first one because I don't have a tendency to do this first. And, man, was this easier. Okay, so this is sewing. Kimberbell does do like an inset to their outlines, so it's actually sewing on the fabric, mostly on the fabric and just a teeny bit off the fabric, and everything is matching up beautifully. So I'm going to let this sew. I have a couple things to show you that are surprises for the next sew along with Jan. And while this is sewing, I'm going to show you, I actually have one sewn out so I can show you the entire finished product. So give me just a second. I'm going to raise the camera back up to look at that. And I'll lay it down here so you can see it. So here's what it looks like when it's all sewn out. If I can get close enough where you can really see it. Now this one has a different colored thread. This one, I kind of matched the back of my little pillows with my thread. So this, the one I'm doing right now is blue, and this one's kind of a minty green. So that's what it's going to look like when it's done. It's all beautifully lined up, and I didn't have to trim it in the hoop. What a cool thing, huh? So this is what we will start with next time for the assembly portion of the pillow. Let me go get the little pillow so you can look at it again. So what we'll do next time is we will trim this body down. There was a cool little trick that I learned from another Kimberbell class, or another Kimberbell design I did on how to trim this, because it's a little tricky because it's like 8.5 by 12.5 or something like that. It's kind of an odd size. You have to trim this middle section too. So just go ahead and not trim it till next time, and then I'll show you how to do it. And then we're going to piece the little borders. There's all these little 2.5-inch squares, so make sure you cut all your little 2.5-inch squares. I think you need 24. I just did kind of a variety pack here. And then I'll show you how to make another envelope back. We've done that before, so we'll do that as well. And that we'll be doing next time. Just a second here, I got some more comments. I have the small clover. Yeah, the small clover works fine. Oh yeah, that Steam Fast mini iron. I've never, that was like 20 bucks. That probably would be a good size too. So that would be another good one. I've seen those, and I just don't have, I didn't have one. I just bought this clover. So, but I'll check the price and I'll put it up later. All right, so next time we'll do our assembly on this pillow, okay? Make sure you have all your pieces cut out. See if I had any other little notes on here. I don't think I did. It was just the shape flex, and I used tearaway for the embroidery instead of what they said on the pattern. No, Terry, the kit does not include legs. You have to purchase your own legs. Okay, so I have some surprises for you. I have another project that I'm working on that I would like to do as a sew-along. This is, I did this week, and this is a project bag. Bring this up so you can see it a little bit better. We wanted to make one of these because I have these are the Kimberbell orange pop rulers, and I needed something to carry these in because I'm always carrying them around and I'm afraid I'm going to break them. So I found this cute little bag. So I thought this would be a fun sew-along, and this is all sewn, and it has a cute little piece border down here and a zipper on the top, and then a handle, so then you can carry your project around, and then it has vinyl in the front, so you can see through and you can know what's in the bag. So I think this will be a sew-along, probably later in June or early July. Okay, so we've got this that I wanted to show you. I'll put a picture of it up on the group so you can see it a little bit better. I've got more comments. Okay, and then the other thing I've been working on this week is this is the new pillow. This is the new settee pillow. I'm not quite done yet. I'm having a little trouble with the middle part of the design. So this is the Home of the Brave settee pillow. That'll be for the 4th of July holiday. And I did some of the similar things that we were doing with this welcome pillow. This is all cut out on the Scan and Cut. Home and Brave is fabric, and I cut it out on the Scan and Cut. These I actually trimmed in the hoop, the little stars, but I did the Home and Brave like this one. So I'm going to put a file on the in there that you can use, or you can make your own. But this is the next two things. I might do this as a class, just because I did some different stuff in the center here, and then we could go through the cutting procedure again. and doing the applique. Would that be okay if we would do this as a class before the 4th of July? And then do the bag after that? Would that be all right with everybody? Send me up a signal and let me know if that would work for you. Because this one's a little different. There's always a little bit of a delay here, so it takes a little bit for people's comments to come up. That'd be okay if we do should we do the pillow? And then do the bag? So I'll probably do this in a couple of weeks. Because I have to do just a little bit of work on the middle of the design. I'm having just a little problem with this. The software did something funny. So I have to go back and do a little bit of fix-up. Yes, you like that? Like the pillow? So the pillow design will be $10. And I'll probably announce that for sure next week. And then you can order the pillow pattern if you want. And do pillow, then the bag. Okay. Yes, we'll do the pillow first because it's 4th of July. And whoops, a second here. I got to get my comments going again. Oh, just a second, Jackie. I missed your comment. Yes, okay, so the pillow needs to get done so we can use it. Okay, yes, I agree. So the pillow will be done by next week. Like I said, I ran into a problem that I wasn't expecting. I sewed it out and it sewed fine, but if you were to try to sew it out, it does not sew fine. I knew what I was doing to get it right because I made it in my head. But the software was just being funky on me, so it looks fine, but the design doesn't sew terribly well. It doesn't sew in the right order. So I will play with that. So I wanted to do, so I've got some of this done in metallic over here, and I got a little bit of heat transfer vinyl on here. So I thought it turned out really cute. Then the backing is going to be red, and I'm going to have red binding on it too. So that's the next settee pillow that I've been working on. Okay. So those are the next two projects that I've got. And then I've got one other one. I love pin cushions. So we're going to make a pin cushion. I found a really cute free pattern for one of those little chicken pin cushions that you make with prairie points. And I wanted to do that because then we can cut some fabric without, on the Scan and Cut, we'll cut some fabric out without the backing, the heat and bond on it. So that's going to be another little Scan and Cut class too. So we'll have kind of both. Well, I'm going to incorporate some Scan and Cut stuff in. Okay, so those are your surprises for the week, the new bag, but I'll put pictures of these up. Uh-oh, I just broke a needle. Sorry, guys. Okay. You get to hear Jan break a needle. Gets a little excited when it does that. I'll show you why it broke a needle. I can show you why. I love the brother thread. But these little threads here have a little bottom that closes up, and every now and then I run across one that won't close. See how it won't close? So it got stuck in that little crevice there. The thread just got stuck in there and broke my needle. So I'll have to back up and I'll finish sewing it in a little bit. But everybody got to see it all done out anyway. So this is what it looked like all done. My original sample. Okay? So does anybody have any questions? I'll bring the camera back to me so you can look at me for a second. Any questions, anybody? Did I thoroughly confuse everyone with all that running around from the Scan and Cut to the other machine? Let's see here. Pictures and supply list for what, Lisa? Oh, you mean for the pillow? For the pillow, you mean? Great job as always. I did a lot of running around tonight, Lynn. But I knew I'd have to when I had two machines to use. So, okay. We'll watch the video when I get home. Cool. What's your border for that? For the welcome. The border is. I'll pull just a second. I grab my little baggie. The one I'm going to do for the class, it's all in little polka dots. I've got like all different colors of polka dots. And the background is the same color as the thread. So It's just polka dots, lots of different colors. Kind of scrappy. It was a bunch of fabric I had left over from a couple of my Kimberbell quilts, and I just thought that'd be a good thing to use up. You do a great job. Thank you, Denise, very much. Good refresher on applique with the scan and cut. And yep, and it's so much fun. See, you can make an applique cut line with any applique. So just anytime you do an applique, that's how you do it. And then you can cut it out on your scan and cut if you don't want to trim in the hoop. It's so nice. And lots of people do the what I want to say, the SVGs, but I've had problems when I open them up. Sometimes they're not the right size. They're too small. They're too big. They open up and they're like grouped together weird. So I don't use SVG files usually. I like to make them right off the PES file because we can do that. We're lucky we have this ability to be able to do this. So, okay. Okay, so the video will be up there for you to watch. I'm going to go ahead and change my needle and finish my welcome so that it'll be done for next time. And next week we will do at 6 o'clock, and it's Father's Day, so remember your dads. I'll go up and have dinner with my dad first, and then we will have class in the evening, and we will we'll do our trimming, and then. Yeah, Clara, I didn't think you had one of these cutters. Aren't they cool? The scan and cut's the way to go. I mean, they are so cool, and you can do so much with it. And it's got a scanner in it, so it's really cool. And then we will trim our design, and then we will do our piecing and make our pillow like next week. I figured this would be a really fun class. I just really liked this little design. It was so cute. Oh, and Lisa, by the way, don't forget your fabric, your Shop Hop fabric. It's at the store yet, okay? And then, oh yes, I will send you it's actually basically the same amounts of fabric that you used for the Easter pillow. So it's exactly the same. So if you look at your Easter pillow, you can look and see what you need. Because it's going to be the same as the Easter pillow and the St. Patrick's Day pillow. It's the same pattern, okay? So you can look on there. All right, thanks everybody. So if you have any questions, make sure you personal message me or text me or whatever. So have a good evening. I'm going to go start working on my long arm now, so I get to take that thing apart. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.